Hello everybody, my name is Phantom Phoenix. In my last video I discussed counters, and in that video I was mostly talking about 5v5, so I wanted to play a little bit of 66 and see if all those rules still apply. And what I found is pretty interesting. While most of the stuff still does apply, there are cases where you can get away with more stuff. Since there are two tanks, you're able to not immediately counter swap the enemy tank. It doesn't really promote that nearly as much as 5v5. However, I do find that the chaotic nature of it makes it a little bit less good for competitive, so I don't really enjoy 6v6 ranked nearly as much as I enjoy 5v5 ranked. I also find that it's a lot harder to merge with a second tank than the rest of your team, so you'll have cases where one tank is really good and one tank's not nearly as good. You also have cases where people will go with 3 healers, people will go with like 3 DPS. So if they had a role queue 6v6, I would like it a lot more for competitive. I do feel like the two tanks can have some really good moments where, like Sigma or Ramatra, they merge super well together with the double shields. Winston and D.Va go really good together with the ability to double dive. I feel like 6v6 is very fun for the tank. However, I feel like it really falls off when you're the DPS or the support, because then you're just getting overwhelmed by 6 people rather than 5 people. So I'd say when it comes to healers and DPS, 5v5 is a lot more fun in almost every way. Just you have less people to heal, you have less people to damage, it's just better. Next I want to talk about how the maps are mostly made for 5v5. However, before I do that, I do want to say, if you do enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe, and I also go live on Twitch almost every day, so head over to there. Anyways, onto the maps. I feel like almost every map in this game is made exclusively for 5v5, and you get a lot of moments in 6v6 where it feels like everyone is just clustered together. And that does lead to some moments where I feel like some situations are a lot less readable than they would be in 5v5, so it's a lot harder to react quickly. That's not to say that I don't like 6v6. I really like it when it's in big open maps like Route 66 and stuff, but on maps like King's Row, I just feel like 6v6 is way too chaotic, and it makes it to where you can't really strategize as effectively as you can in 5v5. I also don't really feel like the counter issue is gone in 6v6. It's a lot less prevalent, and you don't really have to swap the tank as much. There are cases where both tanks can be countered by one person, and people just act like that doesn't exist. I do feel like the issue with having a bad one-trick on your team is almost gone though in 6v6, because you have another teammate that can pick up. Like, if your dive is really bad and you're not good with a dive tank, your other tank can go a dive tank and pick up for you. I also do sometimes like the lack of a role queue, because there are times where I am just not good with a hero that would be good in this situation, and I can swap out for another person. Like me personally, I suck with dive tanks, especially D.Va. However, my friend is really good with D.Va. So if we need a D.Va on the team and I just don't want to play D.Va, he can just swap in for me. On the other hand, my friend isn't very good with Sigma, and if we need a Sigma on the team, I can swap in for him. So while there are cases where 66 does limit you in what you can do because of how many people there are also times where it broadens your abilities. On to the biggest issue I have with 6v6 though, it is the two tanks. Tank being the most powerful role in the game comes with some downsides, and having 2 of them comes with 2 of the downsides. One of the biggest issues I've seen with this is when people run Mauga Zarya. The only thing that you can do against these two is go Mauga Zarya, because otherwise you're just gonna be getting ran through the entire game by the 2 most annoying tanks in this game. Another annoying combo is any shield tank with Domina, because they can just put their shield in front of Domina's shield and give her cells even more health basically. And then there are also cases where 3 healers just completely make it impossible to kill, like a Mauga or a Roadhog, and it's just, there's a lot more uncertainty. With that, I do still think 5v5 has its issues. I wish tanks would just be brought down a little bit, because currently in 5v5 and especially in 6v6, the tanks are just insane. They just run through the team. It's ridiculous. Like, if they have a good Doomfist and you have a bad backline, you're done. You lose. And yeah, it quite literally is a skill issue. Again, like, if your backline was good, then you wouldn't lose to a Doomfist. But that's the issue with not 5-stacking. If you 5-stack, then you won't have that issue because you know everyone on the team. You choose who your 5-stack is. Whereas when it comes to randoms, you don't know any of these people. Unless you suddenly have perfect communication with 4 random people, you're screwed. And there's a point that a lot of the molding one tricks in the comments made on my last video. If your team is doing bad, you need to enable them. And while I do agree with this in most cases, there are times where if my Genji is diving in 50 feet into their backline and dying in 3 shots, I'm not gonna go dive tank to support his dumb decisions. They should see that what they are doing is not working and maybe go from a different angle, go somewhere else, do something else. They're just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results like an insane person. And before you go to the comments and insult me for this, I'm not saying you shouldn't go dive tank if you have a dive comp. I'm saying if one person out of the brawl comp is going dive and dying, maybe they should swap. The only time I would say swapping to enable your team is a good idea is if majority of your team is unable to get space or unable to get a push going. Or if they're all dying behind you and you can't do anything against it. That's when you should probably swap to someone else. However, to all the Genji mains out there, and Hanzo mains out there, and Anran mains out there, if you run around a corner away from your healers, die, and spam you need healing, you are the problem. It is not your healers. So for the love of God, stop spamming I need healing and maybe peek your healers. Either that or maybe swap off dive, because if you're running in and dying and the rest of your team isn't, maybe dive just isn't needed. And again, I want to reiterate, I don't think dive is a bad comp. I'm just saying that if there is a bad dive on your team and the rest of your team is not going dive, you shouldn't be playing dive and you should play with the team. This brings me to my next point. Every single character in the game has its role. Genji's role is to dive in and get picks. Bastion's role is to melt tanks. Ashe's role is to pick people off from a distance. Winston's role is to dive into their backline and get their tanks to push back and then dive back to the team. Every single character has its place in the game. However, there are times where characters are not the best tool to be used. Like Winston diving into a team where it is a Bastion, a Reaper, an Ana, and whatever else. That's not a good idea to dive. And yeah, while you could go Genji and dive that and make the argument that your tank should be a Winston or should be a Doomfist, that's just not the best tool for that scenario. I also feel like some people had some very good points in those comments. One of the best points I saw is that rather than learning every single character in the game and becoming a jack of all trades, master of none, learn a few characters for each role. So learn a few dives, a few brawls. Don't learn every single character. And I completely agree with that. That's the point that I was trying to get across. Like, yes, some characters definitely are better than others for certain scenarios, but like I said, if you are better with one character than you are with another, it doesn't matter how much the one you're bad with counters somebody else, you're going to be better off going with the one you're good with. Most of the advice that I am giving here is targeted towards people who aren't very good at the game. So yeah, while if you are really good at the game, this advice might not apply to you and you might already be following it or you might not be following it and you got to that point by doing whatever you're doing, then keep doing whatever you're doing. I'm not saying this for all the grandmasters out there. I'm saying this for all the people who are in gold with me, like this Genji that I got in with not even too long ago, just earlier today, where they run around the corner, die, scream they need healing, run around the corner, die, scream they need healing, get toxic in chat. It's those kind of people that this is targeted towards. And also, just real quick, don't get toxic in chat at all. If you're not getting healing, don't immediately go to chat and say, oh, GG no heals, GG no heals. Because maybe it's just your positioning that's the problem. Maybe you're not peeking your healers. Maybe the healers are bad. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. Just try to be nice no matter what, because there is so much that goes into being a healer and a DPS and a tank, and you complaining isn't going to help any of the causes. Instead, take a step back, swap a character, change something you're doing, see if that fixes it. If it doesn't, and no matter what you do, you can't win, then yeah, it might just be your team. You might just have a bad team. It happens. There are times where your teammates are just bad. There's nothing you can do about that, but it doesn't mean get toxic towards them because they're trying. You're at the same point that they are right now, and yeah, they might be the reason you're at the same point, but maybe they're not. Maybe you don't see that you're bad. Maybe you're just looking past all of the issues that you have. Maybe you're letting that ego shroud all of the terrible plays you're having. Genji. In the end, you are the only person on your team that you can control, so play with your team. Don't blame your team for doing something else, play with them. And there are times where swapping to something that helps the team will lose you the game. There are times where it will win you the game. There are times where the enemy team is just simply better than your team. There's so much that goes into gold and silver and platinum and diamond and masters. Just keep in mind when you say stuff about how, oh, this is gold lobby mindset and stuff like that, you're in gold too, or platinum. Or masters, anything, you're in this too. One of the biggest things I've seen is how people will get to Grandmaster, they will get an ego, and then next season, when the season resets, they'll be stuck in gold because it really doesn't matter how good you are. If you have an ego and you sell the game after your teammate just, I guess, isn't good in your eyes, then you're the reason your team is losing. It doesn't matter how much better you are than your other DPS. You're lowering the morale of the entire team by being a toxic douchebag, which in the end just makes the team worse. So yeah, while you might be the best player on the team, it really doesn't matter if you're sitting around insulting your teammates and selling the game and doing all this different stuff that causes you to lose. Just swallow the ego, act like you've never been in a master's role, act like you've never been in anything higher than the role that you are currently in, and play the game in the role you're in. The issue that I see the most with these kinds of people is that they get high stats, and that makes them feel like they're doing good, when in reality, they're not. Like that Genji I've been mentioning the whole video. That guy had decent stats at the end of the game. That doesn't mean he was doing good. We lost because in our eyes, we basically didn't have another DPS. No matter what happened on the front line, he was somewhere else, doing something else, not helping the front line. And another issue that I brought up in my last video, people will play these characters, think they're doing good, get value with their ults like a Hanzo ult, where Hanzo's ult can be very, very good. So it ups their stats and they think they're doing good when away from the ults, they're not really doing that much. I also see this a lot with Genjis, where Genji can be a very good character, but his ult is very good when used right. And I will see him steamroll a team with his ult, get 5 kills, and then maybe get 2 more kills before he gets another 5 kill. So yeah, while he wins a team fight, we might have died 7 times in total within the time that it took him to get the ult. Let's get back on topic to the 6v6 versus 5v5. I think 5v5 is better for competitive and 6v6 is better for fun. However, I do think 6v6 ranked can be very fun, especially if you have a full team that is competent and coordinated. I do still think 5v5 is better for ranked though, just purely because role queue. If role queue was in 6v6, I would think it would be a million times better. I at least want role queue in 6v6 competitive. That way my random teammates know what they're going to play already. Because, oh my god, the amount of people that just swamp DPS when they can't heal or swamp healer when they can't DPS and completely ruin the team lineup is astronomical. The only issue I do see with role queue is that there are times where 3 supports or 3 DPS can work, and it's kind of annoying that we're forced to pick between having a stable team or being able to have these fun lineups with 3 healers. And yeah, it does suck, which is why I think there should just be an option. It should be quick play has no role queue and competitive has role queue. I also do feel like this would be a nice addition. This is just kind of personal preference, but I feel like if there was one more ban in 6v6, it would allow for a lot more control, because there are times where 6v6 can be annoying because you have 6 people now that have to vote and not everyone's going to agree on who they want to ban. I don't know. It just kind of feels like 6v6 is kind of thrown onto the side while 5v5 controls what 6v6 does, which is really annoying, and I wish they would separate it more and give 6v6 more exclusive things. I also seriously feel like the 30% healing reduction has affected 6v6 more than anything else, because the supports now have another tank that they have to heal and the same amount of supports. So it causes even more of those moments where you're sitting there feeling like you're not getting healed, because guess what? The other tank is also getting absolutely ran through by the enemy team. So yeah, to close out a little bit, I feel like 6v6 has extreme potential. If they would just focus more on 6v6 instead of 5v5 just for one season at least, they can make it so good. I do definitely see that it is hard for them to manage 2 different game modes though, because in the end they did release 5 heroes this season, so I get that it is hard to balance all of them with everything going on at once, especially for 2 different modes at a time. But man, I wish they would, because 6v6 has been so much fun over the past week that I've been playing it, and I just wish that I could play it in competitive and actually have as much fun as 5v5 competitive. But with that, I am going to wrap up the video here and say thank you all for watching. Again, if you did like this video, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and check out my Twitch where I go live almost every day. I also wanted to give a special thanks to all my tier 3 subs over on Twitch. Special thank you to Marbed twice because gifted subs. And thank you to Araya for the tier 3 sub. Also, special thank you to all my mods for keeping the channel safe. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.